Communities all across the globe are beginning to feel the effects of climate change. With rising seas and rising temperatures wreaking havoc around the world, there has been a widespread call for action and demand for more time and effort to be put into combating the effects of global warming. Even still, the oil and gas industry is booming, and the United States under the Trump administration has taken no firm stance on climate change in order to continue their pursuit of economic profit that is only temporary.
I'm not going to lose that wealth. I'm not going to lose it on dreams.
Coastal cities are continuing to build on more oceanfront property as if there's a guarantee that it'll still be there in the next 50 years. With the severity of climate change and its rising sea levels already affecting our coastal communities, is enough really being done to tackle this issue? Sea level rise is one of the most obvious visual indicators of climate change and has already proven to be affecting Florida's coastlines. As ice sheets and glaciers across the globe are melting at accelerating rates, our coastal cities need to prepare for the damages to come. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the sea level around Florida's coast has already risen 8 inches since the 1950s. Sea level rise has been accelerating within the past 10 years and is now projected to continue rising at more than 1 inch every 3 years. This increase will be devastating to coastal communities. It is estimated that nearly 180 million people will be displaced by these rising seas by 2050. These numbers present us with a very daunting, uncertain future and should not be ignored. In the time that you've been living here, would you say that you have experienced the effects of sea level rise?
Yes, I have.
And you'd say that it has affected you and people that you know?
In my business, because I sell to electrical contractors, and we're having to change the way that we sell the equipment because it has to be raised. It can't be put on the ground level no more because water is getting into the tide or sea levels it's coming into electrical rooms. So yes.
And do you feel that the city of Miami is doing enough to combat these
I
effects?
don't think so. No, I think they're focusing more on money coming in from tourism than what they are doing to foresee the future.
Would you say that the United States government is doing enough to combat climate change?
I really don't think so. So, Mr. Trump.
Life in South Florida is going to undergo some drastic changes within the next 100 years, especially if humans continue to contribute to climate change as we have been. Miami Beach is home to about 90,000 people, all of whom will likely have to find a new place of residence within the next 100 years. With sea levels on the rise, Miami's famous beaches are certainly going to see some changes in just the next few years. A record-breaking 23 million people visited Miami in 2018, taking time to see all of the city's beautiful beaches, restaurants, and resorts. However, it seems that within the next 100 years, you may be needing a different form of transportation to see these same places. So, is there anything that we as individuals can do to combat sea level rise?
And we definitely have to reduce our carbon footprint, and there are things that could be done here by government to mitigate some of these changes that will occur. We definitely have to, think about going away from fossil fuels, going to more sustainable systems. Yeah.
Do you feel that the United States government is doing enough to combat climate change and sea level rise in coastal communities?
We know for a fact that they're not. There are a lot of people in government that don't trust the data. So they are starting to implement some of the modifications required, but I think we have to be way ahead of that and do much more than they're doing.
So you don't think that Florida's attempts of raising their roads, installing series of pumps to redirect floodwater, and building new seawalls are enough to combat this sea level rise?
We know for a fact that that's just going to slow down the process a little bit. There's nothing holding back the oceans.
South Florida is not the only part of the Sunshine State that will feel the wrath of our rising seas within this next century. The city of Flagler Beach, located on a barrier island in north-central Florida, has been feeling the effects of sea level rise over the past few years, heightened by the forceful winds and seas brought by Hurricanes Matthew and Irma. Hundreds of homes were destroyed from flooding, and many of the neighborhoods have yet to recover.
The streets out here flood all the time, and the house across the street from here, across from the Intercoastal, was never flooded, and in Irma, I was flooded.
Do you feel that the city of Flagler Beach is doing enough to try and combat this flooding?
Well, I think they're trying really hard on A1A right now. They've completely changed the drainage system. Only time will tell.
The city is now undergoing a dune restoration project that's going to cost over $20 million. But at the same time, new developments in the area are causing acres of mangrove and wetland ecosystems to be destroyed, both of which are habitats that are critical to combating flooding. And would you say that most of the locals are outraged by the destruction of the wetlands and mangrove ecosystems around Flagler Beach?
I think that they're more than outraged. I think they're trying to actually do something about it.
The citizens of Flagler Beach have come together to petition against the new developments in the surrounding wetlands in order to preserve the natural habitats and their homes. This collaborative effort in demanding action is the kind of movement that we need all across the state and all across the country. The biggest problem with sea level rise in Florida is that the battle extends beyond our state's beaches. Florida's foundation is primarily made up of limestone, which is incredibly porous. Though in most coastal areas, a seawall is almost a guaranteed solution, this alone will not solve Florida's rising waters. The oceans will eventually bubble up throughout the state, in addition to eating away at the coasts. Even if the human race were to completely end our use of fossil fuels tomorrow, the past century of industrial growth and our current administration's dedication to the oil and gas industry in just the past few years will continue to warm our planet for decades to come. What are your thoughts on the Trump administration's indifference to the conditions of our planet, including combating climate change?
Our president, I hate to even use that word, there's no interest on his part at all in saving our planet, unless it saves one of his hotels.
We need to call for further action in combating climate change and vote wisely in future elections.
And I'm an environmentalist. A lot of people don't understand that.
The rising of our seas is inevitable, so either the citizens of Florida must demand action and rise with them, or be left in the depths.